Hi, my name is Jayne Grimes and I'm a counselling psychologist and I work with Spectrum Mental Health. So, what I want to talk about with you today is this more generalised anxiety. It's that kind of sense of anxiety being constantly darting, moving from one thing to the next. And if this more generalised kind of all pervasive sense of anxiety feels familiar to you, I'd like you to also think about, does your anxiety affect you to the point that you have trouble getting to sleep at night? Because that can be a real kind of one of the early signs that anxiety is starting to have an impact on your life. Um, do you find that you have headaches, that might be recurrent? Or maybe you're experiencing quite persistent neck ache or shoulder ache, or a general restlessness, that can't be shifted. Do you find that you have thoughts that race, that are very difficult to control? So all of these would be very common in, if somebody is having that experience of more generalized anxiety, and it's something that therapy can really help with. And anxiety, as an experience, I one way that I look at it is that it's really about an overestimation of how bad something might be if it were to happen, and at the same time an underestimation of our ability to cope with it if it were to happen. So this process of anxiety then undermines our sense of control, our sense of being able to handle a situation that we're in. The first sign of trouble here, when you're starting to feel a little bit anxious, maybe a little bit, kind of that sense of dread, or maybe kind of some kind of, anticipation, around something that's coming up. And just to ask yourself, what is it concretely that I'm worrying about? What specifically is my worst fear in relation to this situation? And then a really important question to ask yourself, is this worry about something hypothetical, or is it about a real or practical worry? The key thing here is to make the abstract and the ambiguous, which by the way worry loves, make this concrete and make it specific. So we really want to make what is vague and what is potentially kind of getting, more and more overwhelming, we want to make it as concrete and clear to see and to respond to as possible. If we have a real and practical issue that we're faced with, then we can step into problem solving techniques that we might use kind of in any other area of our life. Defining the problem, identifying what's at the heart of it, identifying some possible options for ways to move forward, and then choosing the one that works best for us. So we are now dealing with something that is, yes, it's a problem. We're not absolutely undermining and saying that this isn't important. What we are saying is this is something that, with some really clear steps, I can step in and respond to. If, on the other hand, the issue remains hypothetical, then decide what would need to happen to make this something that I had to deal with in the here and now. And if and when that arises, then deal with that issue using the same problem solving techniques that we were talking about before. Now, on the other hand, if you say, well, it's still hypothetical, but it still would be absolutely impossible to deal with if it were to happen. If it's hypothetical, kick it. It's probably not going to be easy, but push that thought away. It will be dealt with, with assurance in the future. But right now, it's not a present concern. It's not concretely having an impact, and it's not creating a specific problem. So kick it. And this probably isn't going to be easy. You might feel very uncomfortable to do this in the beginning. But I would encourage you to just try it for a few times. And over time, you'll begin to notice that there's a real shift in your habit of thinking. Because no longer is your mind honed to the next possible danger, but instead your attention is switched to a very real and workable solution. So we move from that what if to how. And keep a note of these excursions, keep a note of these experiments that you do, and really kind of constantly have that question, what does this tell me about the value of my worry? So I hope you find this helpful. It's been a real pleasure to share a little bit of some of the work that we do. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you again soon.